The Banking Scene Director's Cut goes behind the scenes, sharing stories and insights to help you build the bank of tomorrow.
Welcome, Joris. For our audience, ever since I know Joris, and there's been quite a few interviews and meetups and gatherings at events, both the banking scene and third-party events. He has been founder and co-lead of Deutsche Bank's API program, and today he calls himself the Open Finance lead at Deutsche Bank.
Thank you, Rick.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us. I think it's close to 10 years that you and I have been discussing open banking, PSD2. If you look at PSD2 today, or open banking at large, would you consider it a success?
Well, I would say it certainly is an evolution. So the first time we started to speak about open banking, there was the beginning, I would say, the starting point around transaction data and additional data. And now I would say seeing, for instance, what happens in wealth management and other areas, or in particular in the corporate, on the corporate banking side, I would certainly say it's a success because there are great use cases. Is it already where it could be? Probably not, but certainly a good starting point for the future, I would say.
Yeah. We've been discussing some of the use cases by Deutsche Bank in the past already, but what would you consider the most successful use cases from the open banking ecosystem for Deutsche Bank?
I would say wealth management, because it's just very interesting to offer information around shares in the portfolio of a customer, being able to do investment ordering. That's something really unique in the German market. There's only one other bank offering this kind of information through.
Don't tell me that's
API.
ABN AMRO.
I know it. In the German market. I'm not sure about the ABN AMRO. They probably offer the same.
Acquiring wealth management companies there too.
All right, true.
That's
That's true.
bank, I think.
That's true. And it's successful because there is a clear business model, and it's a very, I would say, interesting target group. You could use the APIs for. There is market demand in this area. So I would say that that's one area, this wealth area. But I still consider the embedded finance APIs to be very important, because they kind of lay the foundation in terms of fully digitized processes and adaptability for what's ahead, basically.
And can you make that a bit more concrete? What are the concrete use cases you're thinking about when you talk about embedded finance?
It's mainly embedding your banking products into third-party platforms, like Check24. Not Finanzguru really, but Check24, for instance.
Okay.
A comparison portal where you can, immediately open an account.
Yeah.
It's maybe not really. It's pretty straightforward, I would say, but it gives you something that is reusable for other contexts and maybe more specialized use cases to come.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially the first part of your question. I was always surprised to see Koen Adels from ABN AMRO combining open finance and wealth management, but hearing your story is apparently not a coincidence at all.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
If we look back at open finance or open banking today, according to you, what did we get right and what did we get wrong?
Good question, actually. I think what we got right is that it's basically a huge opportunity, something to work on, not only for the sake of having external use cases, but as a way to modernize and prepare your IT infrastructure for the future through APIs. I think what we also got right is to see APIs as a chance to build really products and see the product dimension of it. Yeah, what we got wrong, or maybe what I've always feel what I have to still deal with, is that it certainly takes more time to prepare the infrastructure to be able to expose more APIs than we originally thought.
Okay.
And I guess it's the timing aspect. Yeah.
So of those elements where it went wrong, do you think that PSR, the next chapter, will solve what got wrong with PSD2?
Well, my understanding is that it's pretty much a focus on preventing fraud and not really like an addition. So what I would say is that the proposed FiDA regulation is actually would solve more of the topics, because it introduces a wider scope of data and would deliver more APIs.
Yeah. which already answers my next question. Do we need FiDA? Probably yes, but if so, do we need it in its current form?
That's a good question. And probably it depends on who you ask. So very interestingly, we put together many experts in Frankfurt to do an event called the FiDA Roundtable. So we had banks, insurance, tech companies. So at
Banking
those
scene one day.
roundtables, say again?
We were there as well, the banking scene one day.
True, you were there at the
Yeah.
flagship event. That was a pretty successful event. Even our former CIO was there.
Sure. Yeah.
Underlining the importance of a data-driven business. So at those roundtables, you could meet a lot of people who are in favor of the scope and the broad setup, because basically for those who are not familiar with FiDA, it introduces or would introduce a very wide range of data like pensions, insurances as well, like basically all the data related to a retail and a corporate customer, at least small and medium-sized corporate customer. So that's probably pretty interesting. There is a lot of criticism around the other idea that FiDA would introduce, schemes. So data would be exposed through schemes. You could also monetize the data. Those schemes would set up sort of the operational procedure. But a lot of people are afraid that we would end up with a lot of localized scheme, product-oriented schemes, so that by the end of the day, we have a huge fragmentation in Europe with different standards set through the different schemes. And there was a discussion around, okay, how can we avoid that? And to what extent should there be a governance and sort of make sure that there's a coherent approach? Because
the next question gets, who will deal with it? Who will govern that framework, of course.
That's true, but yes, that's true. But what I was hearing all the time popping up as lessons learned from PSD2 and at these roundtables is that it's also terrible to end up with a lot of interfaces that are theoretically there, not really working, and how to make sure that they work and operate as they are designed and stuff. So it was quite interesting to see that there's also like another European funded initiative called FAME. It's about setting up the architecture for federated marketplaces. And they are dealing with exactly this, how to bundle, combine different standards into one, build the access, also the monetization. So there are technical approaches out there. And
that is a market-driven approach.
It's an approach driven by the EU originally, with a lot of market players, mostly tech companies. But it would certainly be nice to implement such a standard or architecture. And back to your point of, okay, who is governing it, at least make sure that something like this gets implemented, maybe governed by an independent body. But also look at it from the technology perspective. That's basically what I want to say.
It's now 2 years that I think FiDA will be a hot topic within financial institutions and within conferences from banks. And for 2 years now, I've been struggling to find speakers. Luckily, I have people like you in my network. But I have the impression that the conversation around FiDA is either very complex or just simply not there. How has the discussion evolved over the past years, according to you, and where do we stand today with FiDA?
So I think there are very open-minded people who see FiDA as a possibility, not only among the FiDA roundtable that we gathered, but in the general industry. So I would say the development of the past 2 years was to understand what FiDA could bring, what potential use cases could be built with the data, what roles the banks could play, how it could benefit the banks. So you could see a change from, what is this FiDA regulation doing, to, okay, we would be ready. We know what we could do, what we could build with it. And then we have the other development that the EU is in this trilogue phase for a while now, where they are talking about different viewpoints among the member states. And my feeling is that the exclusion or not exclusion of the tech companies, the gatekeepers, is still a big topic, for instance. And so the question is how this could be resolved going forward. So I guess that's the reason why you're seeing it going on for a while now, because the topics seem to be quite big and controversial. I've also attended a conference or a meetup last week in Berlin, and there the discussion was around, okay, how can we build and prepare for open banking without the regulation, or if the regulation still takes time to implement? And there was the one person on the panel who said, well, the market is already driving towards the standardization because companies, data aggregators, start to gather more and more data. And you could argue that they already built a kind of standard, but as a service, you would be paying for.
What did they also mention specific companies? Is it what I think it is more the AI companies that they were talking about, or
No, I
other
think there were
aggregators?
other areas of it.
Okay.
They didn't mention a concrete company,
Yeah.
but for instance, what you can already see in the wealth management space, that companies offering data, they are starting to aggregate data from, for instance, other markets.
Yeah.
So that's a development you could see.
All right. If FiDA were to redesign today, or suppose that if you had the chance to redesign FiDA today, taking AI into account, what would you change?
Oh, that's a good question. First of all, I feel like the one learning I had also from the roundtables was I would introduce or something I call a sandbox, maybe a test functionality, start small, but start in real life. I think that would be very interesting. Also to understand and learn what would be useful for AI, because it's actually a very interesting topic. Now, you could say that FiDA would deliver a solid foundation for AI, but what's the use case to start with? And I would design it in a way to start with a use case, build something, see how it works, and then build on top of this. Yeah.
Yeah. The emergence of AI, do you think that it's making open finance a more important topic, or predominantly exposing how far behind the industry really is in Europe?
I think it makes open finance definitely a more interesting topic, perhaps not one of the key ingredients, because what does open finance do? It's delivering data, structured data. And when we talk about AI tools nowadays, they don't want to consume market websites. They need structured data, they need capabilities, they need a good overview. And what I find pretty interesting is, like, nowadays we think of a product, a banking product that a customer is just consuming or digesting information about it. If you if you would be using an AI tool, you would probably be prompting, okay, I'm opening my business. What financial services do I need? And then think rather from the problem and then the capability point of view. And I guess that's changing the whole interaction with the bank. And in order to respond to that, I think you're back to APIs, also embedded finance, fully digitized processes that can be embedded, and to interact with those tools become the most important ingredient for the future.
All right, thank you. Maybe one last question, and that maybe to be answered from your more holistic view on Europe at large, because I think you are probably one of the key drivers of open finance, but that bigger picture, who is really driving open finance today? Would that be regulators, banks, fintechs, technology companies, AI providers, or rather the customers themselves? Who is keen today in shaping that agenda for open finance tomorrow?
That's a good question, actually. Yeah, I think certainly the customers, through using AI tools, are creating an incredible demand that is not comparable to anything that was there in the past. Certainly, all the open banking enthusiasts out there, and probably the ones who you have interviewed or going to interview, are the people who are the innovators of new ideas of what to make with the data and how to respond as a bank. So I guess at the end of the day, the short answer to your question, I think it's going to be a combination out of what's happening, the drivers, and people who understand the possibilities and drive this change as a positive outcome for the banks they work for.
All right. Joris, thank you very much for your conversation. And yeah, I look forward to get in touch and get an update whenever that is necessary when it comes to open finance. And if not, looking forward to catch up with a beer somewhere.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me.